This is the Difference Sports Podcast Show.
Welcome back. It's hard to believe it's week 10 of the high school football season that we're approaching this week, the end of the regular season. You're listening, as always, to the Different Sports Podcast Show to get you ready for this upcoming week of sports, especially football right now. And we also will have a special edition coming up later on this week dealing with Southern Columbia's other fall sports as they approach postseason action as well. So this is the last free week of high school football. After this week, if you make the postseason and you lose, you're done. So with that, we're going to get into our picks. High school last week did pretty good, went 9-1. I lost the Central Mountain Mifflinburg game, but I just went with the team that had 2 wins over the team that had 0 wins, so that was certainly not a good game to pick, but it is what it is. 72-18 record overall. Pretty happy with that. So, this week's games, the final week of the regular season. Bloomsburg at Central. This is an annual rivalry, but this year I'm pretty confident to say that the Blue Jays are better really in mostly all phases, so I'm going with Central. Montoursville at Selinsgrove. I think Montoursville's defense is good enough to provide them with the lift, and I see Montoursville winning that one pretty easily. Jersey Shore at Central Mountain. Central Mountain, as I just mentioned, coming off their only win of the season last week. However, that's going to be their only win of the season. Jersey Shore will win that one. South Williamsport at Loyalsock. I consider this a toss-up game in my opinion. I'm just going with Loyalsock because they're the home team. Line Mountain at Upper Dolphin. Upper Dolphin seems to be the most consistent team in the Tri-Valley League, so I'm going with Upper Dolphin. Mifflinburg at Lewisburg. The Green Dragons really need this to improve their playoff seeding, potentially get a home game in the first round, so I'm going with Lewisburg. Muncie at Hughesville. I have Muncie winning that one, and Hughesville would finish then as the only team in the Heartland Conference without a win. North Schuylkill at Pottsville. It's a good end of the season test. I'm taking the Spartans of North Schuylkill in that one. Shamokin at Mount Carmel in the annual Coal Bucket game. Seems like it's been a century since the Indians claimed the Coal Bucket for the last time, and I think it's going to stay in Red Tornado territory. I'm going with Mount Carmel area in that one. And the game that we'll be announcing on Black Diamond Sports Network with the Coal Bucket game will obviously be Southern, as we announce Southern, Mount Carmel, Shamokin, and Danville every week. We only have 2 games this week because they're both crossover games. Southern at Danville, I'd say behind Mount Carmel. Danville's the second best team Southern will play in the regular season, so it's a good test heading into playoffs. However, I think Southern wins that one comfortably to finish off a remarkable 7th consecutive undefeated regular season. In the college ranks, my Oregon Ducks lost last week to Washington State on College Game Day. That was my only loss. I went 4-1. I'm 24-16 overall. So, picks this week. Utah at UCLA. This is a Friday night game. Chip Kelly's UCLA Bruins seem to be very sporadic this year in terms of what to expect each week. So I don't have enough faith in them. I'm going with the Utes of Utah. Florida at Georgia. It's a top 10 showdown. This could be crucial in the final weeks when the playoff committee selects the 4 teams to make to the college football playoff. I'm going with the Georgia Bulldogs. Clemson at Florida State. A lot of people are probably thinking, and I am one of them, Clemson will win this, but I think it's going to be closer than you may expect. I'm still going to go with the Clemson Tigers. Texas at Oklahoma State. This is probably the most exciting Texas fans have been since the Vince Young days of winning the Rose Bowl. I am going with Texas, the Longhorns in that one. And Iowa at Penn State. I really don't have any faith in this pick. Penn State hasn't proved to me that they're worthy of... I'm trying to lower myself so I fit in the screen here. Anyway, the Nittany Lions have been very inconsistent this season, so I'm still going with Penn State. NFL, 3-2 last week, 24-11 overall. My 2 losses were from NFC East teams. Thank you, Eagles, and thank you, Cowboys. You both cost me wins. Philadelphia at Jacksonville. Even though it's at Jacksonville, it's technically an away game for both teams. This game will be in London on Sunday, one of those goofy London games the NFL started doing. It's all about the money. So, nobody would have thought at this point in the season both the Jaguars and Eagles would be 3-4. However, I think the Jaguars' defense is so overrated this year, it's not even funny. I'm going to go with the Eagles in that one. San Francisco at Arizona. These are two teams that if you're going to pick, maybe with the Bills and potentially the Colts, those would be the four worst teams in football, in my opinion. I'm going to go with the Cardinals because I think their defense is better, and plus, over the past couple of seasons, they've had their way with San Fran. Baltimore at Carolina. The Panthers just came off a very impressive fourth quarter comeback in Philadelphia, so I'm going to stay with the hot Panthers in that one. Green Bay at the Los Angeles Rams. This is the biggest underdog game in terms of point spreads in Aaron Rodgers' NFL career. I'm going to go with the Rams in that one to remain undefeated. And Cleveland at Pittsburgh. A lot of people forget. Back in week 1, these two teams played, and this matchup ended in a tie. However, this time I think the Steelers are finally getting it together, and I think the Steelers win that one handily at Heinz Field. So that brings us to the end of the Pick'ems. Stay tuned next week for this part to see as we get into the, hard to believe, playoff action of high school football. And now, it's time for the next segment in our show. Okay, it's time for the interview section. This week features a junior tight end in Cameron Holiday and a senior lineman in Ross Wortman. Thanks for joining me, guys. Start with the younger man, Cam. Obviously, the last 2 weeks, you guys have played Shikellamy and Hughesville. The two teams only combined to have one win. And now this week coming up, you're playing Danville. Obviously, you guys were heavily favored the last 2 weeks. How hard is it, both mentally and in terms of motivationally, to get ready for teams like that during the week when you know you're going to go out and beat them pretty handily, especially knowing that coming up, you have a one-loss Danville team, and then you go right in the postseason?
Yeah, it's hard staying focused and motivated during these weeks because we're a good team and all.
Yeah. I mean, do you guys feel like it's good to be able to prepare maybe a little bit for, obviously taking a week at a time, but to maybe prepare for Danville, some of their schemes the last couple weeks?
It was nice last week because Hughesville also ran a wing tee, so it prepared us very well. But we took every week, 1 week at a time, preparing or just being ready to go undefeated.
That's obviously working out for the Tigers, as I mentioned. Second longest streak in Pennsylvania high school football history, now with 71 straight regular season wins dating back to 2011. All right, Ross. Obviously, when Stone Hollenbach goes down, Preston Zachman comes in, takes the quarterback job, but it caused about 5 or 6 different changes, both offensively and defensively. What do you think were the main challenges, and how do you think it's gone with the whole transition of not just a quarterback, which is so important, but with all the switches in other positions?
Well, I think at first it was kind of difficult for people to get used to the change, but after all, Preston did a real good job in taking Stone's spot to fill in until he's back.
And obviously with Stone being a non-throwing hand, it's nice to be able to have him throwing in practices and stuff without any injuries, but you have full confidence, obviously, with him coming back.
Yeah, he should be fine without having his throwing hand being injured.
Right. Okay, Cam. Now, you're a tight end. You only had one opportunity, and we're not going to play that one over. But in a Southern Columbia wing tee offense, the tight end is primarily a blocker almost 99% of the time. Does it get frustrating at all when you know you're only going to have maybe 3 to 5-ish opportunities at catching a pass during the season?
No, it doesn't really get frustrating because I like to hit people. It's in my blood, like me and my brother. We're a physical family and we like hitting people.
Simple enough. Ross, obviously, for as many players as you guys graduated last year, there was still a lot of talent coming back. Earlier in the season, the coach's main concern as a staff was the blocking execution of the offensive line. How do you feel that as a unit you guys have done since that beginning of the year when the coaches were really challenging you guys to this point in the season?
I think at first it was kind of rough, but now with all the practice we've had, it's definitely gotten a lot more fluent and a lot better, and we've improved.
And is there any change? Obviously, Preston runs the ball more than Stone did, but as an offensive lineman, does it throw you off at all, or are there any adjusting at all with having him in as just the tone of his voice and new cadence?
No, not really. It hasn't really affected anything with the way that he says anything.
So, again, that's probably more with hard count teams that go on 2, 3. You guys go on different cadences,
Yeah.
but that's good to know that hasn't been a factor. Cam, your brother Cal already, even though he's only a junior, is the all-time leading tackler in Southern Columbia football history. Obviously, you know him better than anybody on the team. What do you think has made him so successful in terms of getting to the ball really since the first game his freshman year?
He watches a lot of film, works hard in the off season, practices hard, and he's just got good instincts, and it just leads him to be a great football player.
Now, football, obviously, you guys are two great wrestlers, too. You can beat him on the wrestling mat, right?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay. Ross, final question I'm going to ask. Danville, obviously, they only have one loss. They have to have skills throughout all different positions on the field. Obviously, we know offensively they've had success passing the football and a couple players that have scored in different ways. But from your perspective, since you're an offense lineman, they do have some speed. They do some weird blitzing. What do you guys have to do to make sure to contain them and not allow for their athleticism to gain any advantage, even though you guys are certainly the more athletic team, but just to not allow for them to find any weaknesses in your offensive line?
You just need to make sure you do your proper blocking rules and do your proper area and make sure you keep your head up and watch for any blitzes.
And then after that, I mean, last week was senior week, but being at Southern Columbia, does it feel any differently? Because some schools, it is their last home game, but you know, as a senior class and as a team, that you guys expect to play at home for 3 more weeks. So did it still feel like a senior night, or do you feel like there's real senior nights, hopefully in week 13 in that district championship?
Yeah, it didn't really feel like it was the last home game.
Okay, this week's Talk Walk. Decided to go with 2 things, one of them being Drew Brees. This past weekend, he became the 4th quarterback all-time, joining Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, and Brett Favre as the 4th quarterback to ever throw for 500 touchdown passes in a career. He also has the record, all-time record, for most passing yards, which he set earlier this season, most completions in NFL history, and the highest completion percentage in NFL history. So, obviously, when it comes to throwing the football, Drew Brees, and he's still got a lot of years left, will most likely go down statistically as the best quarterback to ever play the game. Now, a lot of things get mentioned in terms of how many Super Bowls you win, what do you do in the playoffs. Maybe Drew Brees, well, not maybe, he hasn't had the success that the Tom Brady's, the Joe Montanas have had in the postseason per se, but I think it's time to start throwing a quarterback that not only plays the quarterback position, but he plays the quarterback position undersized. He's not a 6'5" prototypical quarterback. He's under 6 feet tall. And just the way he helped with the hurricane down in Louisiana and brought them a Super Bowl. He has a Super Bowl to his name. He doesn't have an MVP to his name yet, which I think's kind of suspected. I think there's a year or 2 that he could have got one, and maybe it'll be this year. Do you guys consider him one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time?
I do.
Yeah.
Who would you say is the greatest quarterback of all time in your mind?
Probably Tom Brady, because he's got 5 Super Bowls.
Yeah. Tom Brady. Well,
I don't know.
good. I I'd rather you say I don't know than Tom Brady. Yeah, I have to agree. As much as I hate the Patriots, Tom Brady, in my opinion, is probably the best. But I think Drew Brees, when it's all said and done, has to be in your top 5. Second part. Tuesday night, we're shooting this Monday night right before the JV game. Southern Columbia is hosting the Hazelton Cougars. They're on the field right now warming up, so I decided to shoot this before I have to announce that game. So we're shooting this Monday night, depending on when you're watching it. Tuesday night of this week is the Mega Millions, and it's at a record of over $1.7 billion. Wednesday, the next day, not a bad day either, the Powerball's nearing $650 million, so a heck of a lot of money out there over these next couple of nights. However, those of you that have gambling issues, learn from me. You're not going to win it. Somebody might eventually, yes, but it's not going to be you. And here's why. Here's 3 of many things that there's a better chance of happening than you winning either of those. There's a better chance that any of the 3 of us sitting here become the president of the United States than winning either of those lotteries. There's a better chance that any of us get struck by lightning than winning the lottery. There's a better chance of getting killed by a bumblebee or a wasp than winning the lottery. And this one kind of was bizarre, but I guess there's statistics on it. You have a better chance of getting killed by a vending machine than winning the lottery. Don't ask me how people have died of the vending machine. I guess they got that hungry that, you know how that happens when sometimes it gets stuck. Was it worth the 50 cents of your life? Obviously, at the end of it, you know the answer to that. But those are just a couple of things that you have a better chance of doing than winning the lottery. If, however, I was wrong and you won the lottery, what would you buy as your first item or your main item with winning the lottery? Or what would you do with the money?
Well, I pay for my brother's colleges.
That's nice. And yourself?
I'd restore my car.
Restore your car, okay. And honestly, with 1.6 billion, unless there's sentimental value, you could probably just axe the car and get 5 or 6 other ones of any varying degree that you want. Get one for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then special ones for Saturday and Sunday when you're picking up the ladies. Cam,
I'd probably buy a car.
buy a car. What's up with you guys? You can do a lot more with $1.6 billion. I want it a little more interesting. Buy a car.
You said the first thing.
All right. What would be the best thing or the biggest thing you could see that you wouldn't be able to do without winning the Powerball or Mega Millions?
Maybe travel the world.
Okay, I can see that. Now, give me a more interesting one here.
I don't know. You can buy basically anything then.
Well, yeah, tell me something.
I don't know, you can buy your own football field or you buy your own
All right.
park.
All right, buy an amusement park with a football field inside it. So that's the Talk Walk section, and now we're going to bring you to the final portion of our show, and that is the trivia section to see which one. Is it the offensive guard or tight end that wins this week's trivia section? Okay, now it's time for what everybody seems to like as their favorite part of the show, the trivia section. Since Cam's last name is Holiday, it's not spelled the same way, Haladay, I figure every week, sometimes you're running out of ideas, especially when you're breaking it up into a short week. So this week, I decided to say, since Holiday sounds so much like holiday, I'm going to ask you questions dealing with months, years, or decades that have to do with a holiday or some sort of current event in the world. And I'm going to tell you what I want, either the month, the year, or the decade, okay? First one, we'll start off with an easy one. What month is Memorial Day every year? Memorial Day. Number 2, during the 2008 Olympics in Beijing, Michael Phelps, ever heard of him? Broke the record for the most gold medals in the Olympics. He won 8 gold medals, breaking another American record. What month did he do that in those Olympics in 2008, swimming in Beijing? What month did he do that in? That's question 2. Okay. George Washington became the President of the United States, the first one, obviously, as you both know. In what year? What year did George Washington become the president? Thank you, sir. You're the man.
No problem.
Okay, what year did George Washington become the first president of the United States of America? Come on! What kind of Americans are you? 4. Hopefully you know this. What month was the Declaration of Independence signed in? Give you a hint. You shoot fireworks in this month. Jeez.
I knew that one.
See your African American baseball history. Jackie Robinson, I'm sure you guys both have heard of him, became the first African American player to play in the major leagues in this decade. So I'm not asking for a specific year, I'm asking for the decade. Was it the 1920s? Was it the 1850s? What decade did Jackie Robinson break the barrier and become the first African American, really set the standard, especially in today's game with how many African Americans are flourishing in all sports? Okay, so the decade. That was question 5, right? Well, you guys don't seem to know your American history too much, so I'm not expecting a lot out of this one. Miracle on Ice. You hear of it? The hockey U.S. upset of the USSR. What year did that happen? There's a movie made after it. Miracle on Ice. Do you believe in miracles? I'll give you a hint. It was the first year of a decade. So like 1960, 1970, 1980, 1990, something like that. Okay? That's question 6. Question 7. The bombing of Pearl Harbor took place in this month. Now, I know you both had this in history class. The bombing of Pearl Harbor happened in this month. Okay, 8. Osama bin Laden, who was a disgrace to the entire universe, finally was killed for all the terrible things that he was a part of and all the innocent lives that he took. God bless all of them. What year did the Americans finally kill Osama bin Laden? Okay, that was question 8, right? Yep. Columbus Day happens in this month. Yeah, it was a question. Columbus Day happens in this month. Okay, now, Wilt Chamberlain, you guys heard of him?
Yeah.
Never heard of Wilt Chamberlain? Oh gosh. All right, he scored 100 points, the only player in professional basketball to ever score 100 points on the male side, and he did this in Hershey. What decade did he do this in? Give you a hint, it was in the 1900s. Okay, the movie The Titanic, which was at the time and still is one of the longest marathon movies. I saw it in theaters when I was really young, and that was a mistake. Way too young to sit through that long of a movie. Came out in this year. Now I kind of gave yourself a hint. Ballpark, if I was a kid. Okay. Tax Day happens in this month. When do you have to have your taxes filed by? What month? I'm not asking for the actual date, although there is a day. This month. Okay, Super Bowl number 1 happened in this year. What year was Super Bowl 1? Not telling you, but you should know around what Super Bowl we're at now, especially if you're an Eagles fan. So subtract those years. What year did Super Bowl 1 take place? What? Get out. Okay, that was question 13, right? Question 14. St. Patrick's Day takes place in this month, or is celebrated in this month. St. Patrick's Day. Those green Irish figures, you see a lot of them. And they participate in illegal activities for your guys' age, so I wouldn't expect you to know this. 15. The first iPhone was released in this year. What year? Now, there will be some that if you're within a year or two, at my discretion, you'll get a half a point for it, okay? Actually, we'll make this easier. 2 points if you get it exact. If you're in my discretion, it'll be 1 point, all right? First question, Memorial Day, what month?
November?
May is correct.
I get 2 points.
You got 2 points. Michael Phelps broke the record in Beijing in this month. What?
July.
June? August, so I'll give you a point. Although you weren't right.
That's close.
George Washington became president in this year.
I don't even want to say.
Say.
15 something.
Fifth. Our country started in 1776.
See,
What was he the president of, or how was he alive?
I don't know.
God, I should take minus a point. You lose a point. What's yours?
I had 1700.
1776?
No, that's when the United States started, 1789. That was a tricky one. I didn't realize I would have said 1776 too. But you gained a point because this guy got 1500s.
I had 1700.
When was the Declaration of Independence signed? What month?
July.
Good. Basically gave it to you. Jackie Robinson became a Major League Baseball player in this decade.
1940s.
1920?
1940. So you redeemed yourself. You got 2. Miracle on Ice happened this year.
1970.
1970.
Nope. Both wrong. 1980.
Oh, it was close.
What month was the bombing of Pearl Harbor?
December.
December is correct. So, you get 2 points. Osama bin Laden was killed this year.
2008.
2008?
2011.
Ooh.
Neither points. Columbus Day is this month.
September.
What?
October.
October, yes. Thanks. One of you got the hint.
I had that.
This month, Wilt Chamberlain scored his 100 points in this decade. What decade?
1970.
1990?
No. 1990s. Dear God. 1960s. You lose a point for that, too. 1990s. Yeah, he did it against Michael Jordan. Oh, gosh. The movie The Titanic came out in this year.
93.
Yeah, 2001.
That's weird because you average those two together is actually the right one, so neither of you get it. You were both 4 off. 1997. Tax Day is this month.
October.
March.
April. So I'm going to give you
I knew it was
a
right
point
there.
for being close. Super Bowl number 1 happened this year.
1950.
1966.
1967, so I'm going to give you another point for being only 1 off. We're going to get your years checked out here. What are your brothers? There's like 8 of yous. 4, really. I'm going to have them each tutor you on years of useless information, okay? St. Patrick's Day is this month.
March.
Good. 2 each. And the first iPhone was released this year.
92.
2006.
92. 2007 is the correct answer. I'll give you a bonus point. Total them up. 8.
Okay. Oh,
11 to 8. So, by a 3-point margin, Cam Holiday is this week's winner. So another thing, obviously his brother has the tackles record. He already said he's one up on him in wrestling, can beat him in wrestling, and now he can officially say he's the first Holiday to win on the Different Sports podcast show because Cal was in a week 1 tie with Gage Garcia. So, Friday night, don't forget, tune in to the Black Diamond Sports Network. I will not be announcing this game. It's one of 2 games I won't announce this year because since it's at Danville and they're one of our teams, the Danville announcers will announce since it's at their home. I'll be on the sidelines. You can still check out my story, pafootballnews.com on Saturday for what is anticipated to be a good matchup between a undefeated and number 1 ranked team in the state, Southern Columbia team, and a 1-loss Danville team that hopes to compete with the Tigers. Also, before we leave, later on this week, I will have, as I did in the preseason, we'll have a postseason special edition for the other fall sports at Southern Columbia. So, as always, thanks for listening. Next football podcast show will be playoff time. Thanks. Have a good rest of your week.